Could casinos and sports betting become legal in Texas? Today, I am talking with CityCast Politics contributor Scott Braddock, who reports on Texas politics for the Quorum Report, and is co host of the Houston Chronicle podcast, Texas Take. It is Tuesday, January 17th, 2022. I'm Lisa Gray, and this is CityCast Houston. So, Scott, What do you think? Could it happen? Could sports betting? No, that's the short answer.
I am the biggest bummer on all of this. Look, you never say never. You never say never at the Texas Capitol, and that should tell you something. You know that I pride myself on never making predictions. I don't try to get out ahead of myself on the story. I've gone so far as to lecture people in our profession in journalism and say it's really unhelpful for journalists to try to tell the future, right? But on this, it is really, really, really close to being able to just say there's almost no way.
Okay, well, let's start by saying that there's a lot of talk about it this year.
A ton of talk, but I remember when I was first getting started covering Texas politics years ago, I'm going back 20 years at least on this, and I remember Rodney Ellis, who was at that time a senator from Houston, now of course on Commissioner's Court in Harris County. He would always be the one to kind of traditionally file the bill in the Texas Senate that would never even get a hearing on casino gambling. And his quote would be the same almost every year. He would say, I'm going to roll the dice and see what happens, with this. And I remember in 2013, when a Republican, then Senator John Corona from Dallas, carried a bill on casino gambling, there was a hearing in his committee in the Texas Senate. And at that point, and this is just 10 years ago, that was the first time a bill on casinos had ever even had a hearing in the Texas Senate.
Wow.
Right. So this has been very slow progress on this. But you're right. There is a lot of chatter about it, a lot of talk. There's a huge lobby effort going on. The casino industry right now, and they would prefer that I say the gaming industry, they have more registered lobbyists at the Capitol in Austin than any other major concern. I mean, more than AT&T, more than the oil and gas guys, which is definitely of note. And I do know that a lot of the contracts and they have, around 80 lobbyists, something like that, for Sands Corporation and some of the others. They have contracts for those lobbyists that are about $10,000 a month per lobbyist, something like that. That's not all of them, but a bunch of them have lobby contracts like that. The Speaker of the House, Dade Phelan, had a little journalist roundtable this week where he was talking about the idea that, look, hey, he's open to casinos, but he, just like Governor Abbott, has said, hey, we don't want to see them on every corner. They don't want to see, slot machines in every gas station, like you have in Oklahoma. They'd like to see, major destination resorts. Basically, this is a bat signal for billionaires to come in and try to play, to try to influence the legislature. And so they're doing that. As I said, huge lobby effort on this. But the big holdout is Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, the little governor who oversees the Texas Senate. And he sounds skeptical at best. Take a listen.
I haven't had anyone mention it to me that they're interested in doing anything. It doesn't mean that in a session things don't change. But I don't see any movement on that right now.
He doesn't see any movement. He acts as if no one has even talked to him about this, which is fascinating. When you think about it from this perspective, Lisa, his chief political consultant, a guy who's from Houston, Alan Blakemore, a friend of mine, he has been on the lobby payroll of one of the companies that's trying to get sports betting done, BetMGM, and I believe he still has that contract. I'll double check it. But look, this is playing out on different tracks. You have the sports betting guys trying to say, hey, look, if you're not going to do casinos, at least be open to what Mattress Mac would want, which is to not have to drive to a gas station in Louisiana to pull out your cell phone and make your bet on the Astros and then drive back to Houston, right? And he has expressed frustration over that. But another sticking point with Patrick, it was my understanding that last summer there was a fundraiser held for Patrick by some of these sports betting interests. And what he told them, this is my reporting on this, he told them that he was okay with those folks talking to senators about the issue. And this is the way the Texas Senate works now. He kind of rules with an iron fist. He's telling the lobbyists that they have the right to go speak to senators about something. He says, you can quote, he told them you can quote, work the Senate about the issue. But what he did say is he is not interested in seeing a bill, a proposed law to make it legal to do sports betting online. And so that puts these folks in a quandary because that's exactly what DraftKings and BetMGM and all those other companies would want to see. Caesars Entertainment and all the rest want to do that online because people like to do this on their phones, right? That's exactly what Patrick said he doesn't want to see happen.
So he wants us to do what?
Patrick pulled his cell phone out of his jacket pocket and said, I don't want kids
Yeah.
to be doing that on their cell phones.
Uh-huh.
So instead, Patrick told them that, hey,
Yeah.
if we could have maybe something where there are retail locations, like, maybe at the Texans stadium or near that stadium or near, near where the Rockets play at Toyota Center or near, I almost said Enron Field. I was there when it opened. At the Juice Box at Minute Maid Park,
Yeah.
in or near the stadiums, you could have retail locations where this could be done. That's what Patrick would like to see. Of course, those companies don't want to see that. I think the Speaker Phelan, and we talked to him again this past week, he said that basically he would sort of like to see it all done at the same time. And Patrick's actually said a version of that as well, that, if you have, and this is the way Patrick said it on a radio show 2 years ago, he said, hey, if you have, a person in Dallas-Fort Worth who wants to place a sports bet, and they can do that in DFW, how he says, how is that fair to the little old lady who, wants to go to a casino, but she has to drive all the way to Oklahoma? Why not just do it all at once? So there are so many moving pieces to this that it's really hard for me to see how the stakeholders, that being the gaming interests, plus the lawmakers, both Republicans and Democrats, how they all kind of get together on something. Seems like a very heavy lift. Doesn't mean that it can't happen.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at the magic 8-ball here, and it's
You're not
all
rolling the
signs are
dice.
pointing to nah.
Are Texans generally in favor of legalized gambling?
Oh, yes. When you poll it, it's interesting that here you have something that enjoys broad support among Republicans and Democrats. And look, it's something that even the base of the Republican Party is not, opposed to, at least outright. There's definitely the libertarian wing of the Republican Party that basically says people should be able to do what they want. Now, with the evangelicals, that's a different question. And that's really the base for Lieutenant Governor Patrick. He attends Second Baptist Church there in Houston. These are, more right-wing Republicans, or sort of the throwback Republicans. You think about the Christian Coalition of the late 80s into the mid 90s, the folks who would be just angrily against, any kind of expansion of casino gaming.
Yeah.
I think, for the most part, the concerns about organized crime, being promoted and sort of being embedded in the industry, that's not really there anymore. You have questions about the willpower of people to stop gambling when they're gambling their rent money away. And anybody who's been to a casino knows that those folks there, they put out the pamphlets that have maybe on the front of the pamphlet it's got the sun is coming up, it's got the sunrise, and it says something like when the fun stops on the pamphlet. Like, you got to know when to quit. So there's a self-control issue, of course, where that people get addicted to gambling, and all of those posters for gambling, within the casinos or promoting the casinos will have, a very attractive couple, they're at the craps table or they're sitting at a slot machine, and underneath that in small letters and numbers, it says, if you have a gambling problem, call this 1-800 line, right? So there is, some question about the cost to society for promoting gambling. Look, we're in a state where you could have destination casinos that are not in the large markets, right? You could have out in deep East Texas, out in the behind the Pine Curtain. You could have some beautiful resort out there. You could have casinos out in the desert, out further to West Texas, places where people would have to travel to get there, which is part of the sort of part of the control for a lot of people who are gamblers, right? There are a lot of people who will say that they like to gamble, but that they like that they have to go there to do it. Right. Because otherwise, if it was in their neighborhood, they'd be tempted to do it all the time. So there is that.
Right.
You may have heard this, Lisa. Texas is big. We could have destination casinos.
Yeah.
Now, I think the billionaire class in this state, if you were to see a piece of legislation pass on this, the billionaire class would like to see resorts that are in the major markets. So Tillman Fertitta, of course, has long wanted and talked about having a casino in Galveston, on Galveston Island, where he owns a lot of real estate down there, of course, and a lot of the businesses. Houston is a huge market. And in fact, it's my understanding that for the casino companies, the gaming companies, Houston, out of all the markets in Texas, Houston is the one where they really want to have one, either in downtown or somewhere that's easily accessible for Houstonians. If you think about the way that information is gathered on people who gamble, when people go give all their driver's license information and everything like that to be able to get one of the players' cards so they can get comped rooms and free, quote unquote, free food and things like that for gambling.
All the goodies.
it's an industry that is very good at gathering information on who its customers are.
Yeah.
And so when they have looked at their all that data that they've collected, and they look at Texas as a giant market, Houston is the market within the market, where they say this is the one where we really want to be. They'd like to be in Dallas Fort Worth as well, of course, San Antonio, maybe here in the Hill Country outside of Austin, but Houston is destination number one, I would say, if we ever do see some expansion of legal gambling in Texas. Of course, to get this through, to really answer your question though, about why, I think what your question gets to is, why doesn't this pass in Austin when it's so popular with Texans?
Yeah.
Right? This has always been the quandary. And the answer is that to expand gambling in Texas, it's a constitutional amendment, which means that 2/3 of both the House and Senate would have to vote for it, and then it goes to the voters for their approval.
Right.
If it ever got there, if it ever got to the voters, it would pass overwhelmingly. I would guess
Right.
more than 75 or maybe even 80%. It's wildly popular, but you have so many competing interests that I think it's, as I would say in Austin, I'd say it's stuck in the building. It's stuck inside the Capitol. It can't get out because of all these competing factions and different interests and people's different opinions about exactly what ought to happen with it.
Yeah. What are you going to be watching? Is there anything that would signal to you that something's changed?
If there was a groundswell of support in the Texas Senate for this among Republican lawmakers, it would make me think, okay, maybe this has some legs.
So if Donald Trump arrives and says he'll build a Trump casino in Houston.
If Trump says he was going to do, a new Taj Mahal like he had in Jersey, like he had in Atlantic City,
Yeah.
and maybe he would whip the Republican members about it, maybe that could make it happen. Look, I think that if you started to see Republicans come out for it en masse, maybe that would be something that you would want to keep your eye on. If the governor was to put his shoulder into it, that would make a big difference. The governor.
So he signaled he's not against it, right? Greg Abbott?
Right. My colleague, Jeremy Wallace, my co-host on the Texas Take, had reported late last year that Abbott was, and this was the headline in the Chronicle, that Abbott was opening the door just a crack for casino gambling. I do think that, and here's what happens with this kind of thing. When folks are lobbying the lawmakers or the governor or the lieutenant governor about this kind of thing, lobbying is kind of like dating, in that you're trying to build a relationship, You do spend some money, right? And you hope that it leads somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? And eventually it may or it may not. I think this is the easiest way to think about it. But on some of these issues like gambling, someone like Dan Patrick will take as you said, there's a lot of money in this.
Yeah.
They'll take the political contributions from those interests,
right.
And the lobby will make their effort and try to do fundraisers for people, and wine and dine the lawmakers here in Austin. I know that there were some pricey dinners in Las Vegas where some of our Texas lawmakers were there at the end of last year
for fact-finding missions.
Yes, it's all educational, of course. This is all just research when they go to Clark County, Nevada. But I would think that the way this may turn out is like if you took somebody on 4 or 5 dates and things seemed to be going well, and then suddenly they ghosted you. As the kids say, so they weren't even returning your texts at some point. Like, what happened? Well, things happen at the Capitol, and all these talks just stalled out. We couldn't work it out.
And then in 2 more years, we'll be talking about it yet again.
And look, the reason that Abbott and Patrick's doing a different version of it, but the reason that Abbott or the speaker or whoever else in leadership might say, oh, yeah, there could be a chance for this thing. It's to keep that large S flowing in a lot of ways. And I keep trying to impress us, with what you're doing, all these contributions and these, steak dinners and everything. It's really cool. So let's at least keep talking about this. One other thing I would say for why it probably can't work out is that in this legislative session, as we learned this past Monday, the comptroller Glenn Hager came out and said that there is a record budget surplus, around $33 billion extra for lawmakers to play with this time around in the next 24 months as they're writing the next Texas budget. And even in tight budget sessions, Speaker Phelan, in fact, in 2021, he had said, hey, if you're trying to make the argument that casinos and expanded gambling would be something that would be a big windfall for the state, it's just not a convincing argument when they have plenty of money. And when you look at the Texas budget, it's a roughly $250 billion document. And so even if you brought in $1 billion or $2 billion, you only start to, just splash the water in the bucket for what this would supposedly probably go toward, which would be to help pay for public education in Texas. Of that $250 billion budget, a full half of it goes to our roughly 1,100 school districts around the state. So you're not even talking about that much coin, for the state budget when you're talking about gambling. So it's not that it can't happen, although I'm real tempted to say no, like I said originally.
So your bet is no.
That's my bet. Yeah, you got it.
All right. Thanks a lot, Scott. It's good to talk to you.
You too. Thanks, Lisa.
That was Scott Braddock. Now, I am here with CityCast producer Carleon Jones. Carly, what is going on around Houston?
Hey, Lisa. So Tesla is planning another expansion in Texas with its latest plan to make a large industrial site just west of Houston in Brookshire. This project is coming only a year after Elon Musk moved the company's headquarters to Austin. Currently, not much is known about Tesla's plans for the Houston area location, but the company did sign a lease for 1 million square feet at 111 Empire West, which is a part of the 300-acre Empire West Business Park. So we know for sure something big is coming.
That's all for our show today. Follow us on the socials. We are at CityCast Houston. Talk with you tomorrow. That was Scott Braddock. Now, I am here with CityCast politics contributor. No, that's not what Carly is.